I am joined by the newly elected Federal Council Chairperson, Helen Zille. And of course, a pleasure to have you on the SABC. Welcome and congrats on your new appointment. Just first and foremost, I mean, how important is this position and what are your roles and responsibilities?
It is a very important position in the Democratic Alliance. It is a background position. It is not the leadership position, and I will stay in my lane. It's a background position to make sure that all of the systems, structures, processes mesh within the DA to give effect to the decisions that are taken in this very important policy and governing body of the DA called the Federal Council, which is the most important body meeting between Congresses that only happens every 3 years. So it is the position that is responsible for making sure that decisions are turned into implementable practice and that there's transparency, fairness, and accountability in the organization. And that is why it's so important.
I mean, you've made a comeback to the leadership of the Democratic Alliance. And I mean, people, by people, I mean the general public, are saying that it's quite typical of an African leader. You have difficulties of letting go.
Let me tell you that I was having such a ball being a go-go, starting my own media company called the Godzilla Media Group, which I quite liked, doing a lot of new form information, communication technology, really getting onto the new frontier of my life. So my life doesn't depend on coming back and having political power. But before anything else can succeed in South Africa, we have to make this democracy work. It is the single most important thing if we are to have a future in this country. And frankly, with the way the world is going, if the world is going to have a future, people from very different backgrounds, from very different cultures, have to learn to live together in freedom, in a democracy. That is our big role in South Africa. And if we don't get that right, nothing else really matters. So I decided to put my hat in the ring when I was asked to do so, and I'm going to give it my very best shot in a support role, not the leadership role.
I mean, we've heard comments made by Herman Mashaba saying that he'll resign from his position if you are appointed as FedCo chairperson. The appointment has been made. You are now, FedCo chairperson. Are you not concerned, perhaps, that people see you as a divisive leader?
Well, I'm not quite sure how you elide from Herman Mashaba, who's an individual, to this general notion of people see me. I mean, Herman speaks for Herman, and other people speak for themselves, and that is the way the Democratic Alliance approaches people. As individuals, they speak for themselves. And just because a person who happens to be this color, or this gender, or this sexuality says something, doesn't mean to say that they speak for everybody in that biological category. We don't agree with that approach to the world, and I'm sure Herman Mashaba doesn't either, because he used to be the chairman of the Free Market Foundation, which fundamentally believes in freedom and believes in market economies and believes in judging individuals by who they are, not the color of their skin. So I wouldn't jump to any conclusions about Herman Mashaba by what I read in the newspapers, and I would love to have a chat with Herman Mashaba. In fact, if I recall correctly, I was one of the people who recruited him into the Democratic Alliance.
Like Musi Maimane as well.
Well, I did my very best, and I will continue doing my very best to recruit people into the DA, because when you do your opinion polls and look at the vast majority of South Africans, actually the vast majority of us want to live in peace together. Mm-hmm. We want to ensure that everybody's included in the economy. We want everybody to get a good education. We want everybody to have a fair chance in life. We want everybody to be able to become the best they can be. And those are the values on which we build a new majority. And we keep on getting stuck in this race debate. Now, obviously, race divided people and took away people's opportunities in the past. That is absolutely true, and that has to be fixed. But getting stuck in the race debate actually prevents us from fixing that. What we need to be doing is focusing on how we get every child's education up to par, how we get investment pouring into this country, which it can do if we have proper, stable government according to the rule of law, pouring into this country so people can get jobs, so people can move into the middle class, look after their families, and live a life they value. The vast majority of South Africans want that. So that's what I'm involved in politics for, to bring those people together in one organization across racial lines. Just because I happen to be deprived in the melanin department doesn't mean to say I'm not passionately committed to everybody's chances in life.
Okay, just staying on Herman Mashaba, Herman Mashaba and Mmusi Maimane had branded the Institute of Race Relations as a right-wing movement, the same movement that you were a part of at some point. How do you then intend on working with these two leaders?
Well, as I recall, Herman Mashaba was the president of the Free Market Foundation. And as far as I know, the IRR stands for freedom, stands for constitutionalism, stands for the rule of law, stands for a market economy, and stands for non-racialism in the idea that every individual has the right to be judged on their own merits and not the color of their skin. Now, if that's right-wing, then the word has lost all meaning.
Let's just go back to your position. What are your top priorities moving on in your role?
To support the leadership of the party, to do a good job, to ensure that many of the functions in this position, because there are huge numbers of functions, are delegated, to make sure that we act transparently, to make sure that the discipline in this party is applied fairly to everybody, not in an authoritarian way, not in a way that punishes certain people because of their connections to certain other people, but is absolutely fair to everybody, and to have a party that everyone believes gives them a fair chance. If you look at our vote today, it makes the DA unique. Look at what Mmusi Maimane did. We had a setback in this election, not nearly as much as a setback as the ANC had. They carry on as if nothing's wrong. We do a major review. The PAC went out of business in this election. Did they do a review? No. We are a party that introspects. We do reviews. We analyze what went wrong. We get together. We discuss it openly. We reflect upon it. We get independent people to give us tough advice. We take that advice seriously. Then we hold elections where we're not all fighting about who's a delegate and who's not a delegate, and we don't throw chairs at each other. We come and we register, and we go through an absolutely fair process, and it's a tough process, and everybody goes out of here, and no one is going to tell you that it was unfair or that somebody undermined the process. Which other party can do that in South Africa? Not a cent changed hands to get somebody to buy a vote. I phoned most of the delegates to persuade them to vote for me, so did every other candidate. We function freely and fairly. Name me one other party that does that in South Africa.
Let's just go back to the issue of perceptions.
That's the reality. Perceptions, I'm talking reality.
Okay, let's go back to perceptions then. Are you not worried about perceptions that somewhat suggest that you can't let a black leader run their own organization? And hence I say perceptions.
There's some people who have a vested interest in creating perceptions about race all the time. Why? Because they know that if they divide South Africans on the basis of race, then one party always wins. It is the easiest strategy in the book to say black people can only speak for black people and must organize with black people. And if you do that demographically, you can see that you can never have a change of government through the ballot box, because elections will always be a racial census. And so there are people that whatever the issue is, whatever the case is, if I'm running against Athol Trollip, who happens to be a white man, believe me, it'll be an election about race. That is why we can't get to the real issues in this country, about how to get people out of poverty, about how to grow the economy, about how to get everybody into a job, about how to get everyone with the skills they need for the job in the fourth industrial revolution, let alone the fifth. We never get to those questions because we always bog down in race. And some people always want to keep us bogged down in race. Why? Because it keeps them in power very comfortably. And it keeps them in power even though they never address the real issues. I'm not interested in that. I am passionate about this country. I want this country to work for everyone. Since I was a schoolgirl, I've been fighting for democracy in this country. And I promise you, I will continue till the day they carry me off in a pine box.
Just lastly from my side, elective conference, Congress, I beg your pardon, the policy conference has been moved to 2020. I know it's still early to talk much on this issue, but perhaps a roadmap or preparations for 2020 as a party.
Now, this is one of the first bits of homework that I'm going to have to do, because it'll be part of my job to make sure that all the systems and processes are in place to get a Congress that is absolutely free and fair and properly organized, where all the delegates from all the branches are properly audited, are properly there, are legitimately there, get all the information, can debate the issues on an equal footing. It's a big, big job. And I'm going to have to do that, and I'm going to have to learn to do that, because I haven't done that before. So I've got homework to do, and as soon as I can get out of this interview, I'm going to start doing that homework.
Thank you so much.